gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. You won't do it today, but eventually you will.
Two fun things coming out of that. First of all, she didn't say nobody ordered her to flag the documents. I feel like her performative, I'm not gonna talk to you, is because she was asked to do that. And it was Donald Trump that asked her to do that. So that's fun. But more fun, especially in the short term, is that day when she's gonna have to answer for it, many of us were assuming that, I guess 2029, I suppose, after the Democrats take over, if possible. No, it's gonna happen a lot sooner, actually, because even some Republicans now joined with Democrats to vote to haul Pam Bondi's sorry ass back in and to answer questions about the information the DOJ has been withholding. Now, the weird aspect of this is that it's partly, I guess, to the credit of Nancy Mace that they're doing this subpoena of Bondi, but I'll let her tell it.
I move that the committee issue a subpoena to the Honorable Pamela Jo Bondi to appear before the committee for a deposition regarding the department's handling of the investigation to Jeffrey Epstein and his associates and compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
So this is a good day for noted and enthusiastic transphobe Nancy Mace. Bad day for James Comer, both because this guy who would imply, and he's postured as if he cares about oversight, he wants to get to the bottom of all this. That's why he's never stopped talking about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. And yet for some reason, he had an objection to bringing Pam Bondi in to actually answer questions. But it didn't matter in this particular case because 5 Republicans on the Oversight Committee joined with Democrats and they did force through the subpoena. And so she is gonna be brought in to answer, or at least to do her Mean Girls impression again. I don't know, but at least it's something. And she does have a lot to answer for. Not only the flagging thing, but also the DOJ has admitted that nearly 50,000 Epstein files, including the allegations made against Donald Trump and the FBI interviews with those making the accusations, were removed. They just decided we're not gonna give those to Congress, which they are not legally allowed to do. They're now multiple months in violation of the law requiring them to disclose all the Epstein files. And what's interesting is that despite making no mention of those files previously, when it was identified that they hadn't given them over, now all of a sudden they have like an ironclad excuse as to why they didn't give the documents. They say that the nearly 50,000 files were offline for further review and should be ready for reproduction by the end of the week, which again is not up to them to decide. And also, why is it that we had to come to you asking for those files for you to point that out? Why didn't you just tell us that you had those additional files and you hadn't released them? A little bit suspicious. And I think it's pretty clear why they decided to do that. So some of the files that they released, we could jump ahead to, I believe it's graphic somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, the ones that were specifically interviews by the FBI about accusations against Jeffrey Epstein, they released those. But the similar interviews that were done about the accusations against Donald Trump are not. Isn't it interesting that they need to do those further reviews specifically about the ones involving Donald Trump? And so it sort of returns us to the question to Pam Bondi of why is it that special scrutiny and cover up is being done on the files involving Donald Trump? I can't wait for her to testify. Sabrina, what do you make of this?
Review or further redact over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we already know that Pam Bondi is going to do whatever she can to kind of shield Donald Trump when it comes to these Epstein files. I mean, she did not even seem to care about the Epstein survivors that were sitting behind her the last time she was being questioned. So I don't know how much hope I have for hearing some truth from her moving forward. I do hope that we can release the files in their entirety someday, but I don't think if Pam Bondi has anything to do with it, I don't know how confident I am that we will get them.
Yeah. First of all, I definitely agree with you, but I would say to like the Nancy Maces or to the few Republicans that want to show that you weren't just doing performative stuff for all those years about wanting to get to justice. So what the situation you're in right now is there is an obvious cover up being committed. We might not know exactly why they're covering this up. We might not know exactly why they feel they need to protect Donald Trump, but we all know that they're doing it. And here's the interesting thing. You can subpoena Pam Bondi, but that isn't the end of where the consequences can be. If you want to really show America that you're not a part of this cover up, you can do far more. And I would remind everyone, I'm casually, colloquially throwing out that she's violating the law, but she's also literally violating the law. Throw her ass in prison if she doesn't answer those questions, if she doesn't release those files. She is in charge of this cover up. Donald Trump is definitely the one leading it, but she is in charge of it. She's the one saying when these documents are released and not. She's the one redacting the actual perpetrators' names. She's the one choosing not to redact the names of the victims. If she does not do full voluntary disclosure of all this information, throw her ass in prison, and you will look like a hero to so much of MAGA that has been frustrated with this cover up that bothers them so much. And so again, let's not just hope for some imaginary future where the law actually matters. Make it matter right now. Make her the first victim of this. Anyway, with that said, there's other issues that we have with Pam Bondi. Now, Pam Bondi is technically, her title is that she's the Attorney General, but her real job, as we all know, is that she's Donald Trump's personal lawyer. She's protecting him when he breaks the law, and also protecting the other foot soldiers in the DOJ that are just there because they're loyalists to Donald Trump. And one of the ways that she wants to do that is a new rule that she believes is going to make all of those lawyers underneath her effectively above the law, similar to how Donald Trump is right now. Now, that might seem like I'm overstating it, but we're going to get into the details. Basically, US Attorney General Pam Bondi is claiming the right through rulemaking to tell state bar authorities investigating her DOJ lawyers' ethics to stand down. So if states have concerns about something that those DOJ lawyers are doing, they can and already have historically and in the first year of the Trump administration done investigations. And that can lead to these lawyers facing potentially criminal charges, but also disbarment. She doesn't want that to happen. She doesn't want these states to look into any of what they're doing or why they're doing it. So in other words, anytime that Bondi learns of a bar complaint against one of her own, she would have authority to ask any state bar in the nation to halt their process while she reviews the claims. And I'm sure it'll be a comprehensive review, by the way. And if those bars refuse, the DOJ, according to this new rule, shall take appropriate action to prevent the bar disciplinary authorities from interfering with the AG's review of the allegations. Now, we have no idea what that actually means in practice, except that we do. There would just be no investigation whatsoever. She'd shut it down. She would, investigate the bar itself. I mean, God only knows, but the idea is stop consequences. So the rule is now in a 30-day comment period ahead of it being finalized. You would imagine that some Republicans should, if they were consistent with the things they'd said previously in their careers, been very against this idea that the AG now can tell all these states just kick rocks. Like federalism effectively means nothing if they have total control over it. And so there have been some examples of these complaints already. There were things like US attorney, she called herself the attorney, she had to stop. Lindsey Halligan, Emil Bove was investigated. Importantly, let's jump to graphic 9. A state bar complaint separately raised misconduct claims that the order to dismiss former New York City Mayor Eric Adams' bribery charges used the prosecutorial power of the federal government to coerce an elected state municipal officer to pursue policies to the political benefit of President Donald J. Trump. You all remember that when the Trump administration was clearly influencing Eric Adams, saying, if you give us what we want in terms of ICE access to New York City or whatever, then maybe we make this go away. If not, maybe you end up going to jail. That obviously cannot be allowed. It's these sorts of bar investigations that allowed us to get to the bottom of that and actually stop that scheme. And this is the sort of thing that Pam Bondi wants to stop from happening in the future. Sabrina, what do you think?
Remember when Republicans supposedly cared about states' right and not being treaded on by the federal government? Yeah, my mistake. That only matters when it's them trying to push their own conservative ideology, but they just kind of get to pick and choose these days, and it's so hypocritical, and they're just the party of inconsistency. So. discipline.
100%. I mean, that was the argument that they made for why we need to kill Roe v. Wade. Oh, the states, I love the states, are the best. They got to decide. And then meanwhile, Donald Trump's like, let's just nationalize the elections. Screw the states. They're just agents. They're not supposed to be doing anything or whatever. You're 100% right. But by the way, it's not just the Republicans that are hypocritical when it comes to states' rights versus the federal government doing stuff. Most people to some extent are. I think it's by far the most obvious under Republicans. They don't actually mean it, and so it shouldn't have to be respected. But anyway, again, this is Pam Bondi. She should be answering for literally all of this, and hopefully at some point she will.